Finally, the time has come. You no longer have to choose between conventional medicine and alternative medicine. Today, unlike years past, your team of doctors from all disciplines are working together side by side for the benefit of you, the patient, to help you regain your health and cross the bridge.
Hi again, welcome back to the Bridge to Health. My name is Dr. Tom Dow, and I have a question for you in the audience. How many of you in the audience think that your present doctor knows what all your other doctors you're seeing are doing? I venture to guess probably not too many do, because doctors today are so busy in their practices that they have just enough time to take care of the patients they have and do the best they can. Due to the healthcare constraints which we face with the insurance companies and things today. But it is extremely, extremely important that your healthcare team, all the doctors you see, are in constant communication with one another. And if they're not, you're not getting the best healthcare you possibly should be getting. Today, on our show, I have the special honor of bringing on a guest who's been a friend of mine probably for over 30, 35 years. We went to school together. We actually were roommates together. I'd like to introduce Dr. Robert Kleinwax. Hi, Rob.
Doc.
Thanks for joining me today. So, Dr. Kleinwax, nice to see you again.
Good seeing you.
So, we're going to talk about vitamins and nutrition and things today, because that's your forte these days.
It is.
Can you tell me what is the difference between vitamins? Do they work? Do they work sometimes? Do they not work? Tell me a little bit about vitamins.
So, for people, they usually have one or two opinions. Either vitamins don't work, I'm wasting my money, or it doesn't matter what I buy, they all work. So, the first thing I always teach people that are taking vitamins is take your vitamins and take a glass like this and fill it up with a little vinegar, white vinegar from your house. Throw all your vitamins in it. In 45 minutes to an hour, those vitamins shouldn't be there anymore, because the vinegar is the same acidity as your stomach acid is. So if your vinegar can't break it down, either can your stomach acid. So, and I'm sure you've seen vitamins on your x-rays when you've taken them where they've not even been digested.
I absolutely have. You see the whole vitamin right in the intestine, right in the GI tract. And what I tell my patients, the first thing I ask them is, where do you buy them? Do you buy them in a real good health food store, or do you buy them and get a real good sale on them? And almost 100% of the time, they got them for a real good sale. Yep. And what I say to them is, congratulations, you're making a very healthy cesspool. Because those vitamins just go right through them, right?
It's true. And, one of the things about vitamins is that the first thing, they have to be broken down. So that's the first thing. If the vinegar can't break them down, your stomach acids can't break them down. The second thing, it's got to be absorbed. So let's say that it does pass the vinegar test, and that's what we call it, the vinegar test. Yeah. So let's say it passes that, it breaks down, and you can see that the vitamin's gone now in the vinegar. Now is it getting absorbed? Now the absorption part is the part that is the hardest for a patient to understand, because when something's being absorbed, vitamins can only be absorbed in their format. So if vitamin C needs, or vitamin B, let's say one needs B3 or B6 needs B12, if that vitamin isn't put together correctly, then one or many of them aren't being absorbed. So the absorption factor is usually not really taken into consideration in cheaper vitamins.
Right.
They just throw things in there, and you look at the numbers that are on it. You got 50 milligrams, 100, 200, 300. Well, if your body can only absorb 3 a day, why do you care there's 50 in there?
Right.
But that's the selling point.
Right. It's funny because I've often shown what's called an excipient label, or the additives they put in vitamins to the cheaper vitamins, and people, their minds are blown when I show them some of the things they put in these cheap vitamins. Yep. Shellac, like the things we coat wood with to make the outside of the vitamin shiny, so it has a longer shelf life. Red dyes, red, yellow dyes, which are all carcinogenic. Carnauba wax. Yep. I mean, all kinds of things that will make that vitamins last long in the bottle and stay on the shelf, but the bioavailability, or as you said, the ability of the body to absorb it, becomes like negligent when it has to try to break all that stuff down.
Well, I have one better than that even. There was a huge investigation done on a bunch of vitamins that were sold from, I think it's GNC, Walmart. It was a bunch of the stores. It was in the Wall Street Journal. And basically they took the vitamin and they did a chemical analysis of it to find out that the vitamins and the herbs that they said were in the actual vitamins, and it was mainly herbs, didn't even exist.
Right.
And the reason they didn't exist is because a lot of the processing of these vitamins and herbs kills the vitamin and herb. Either they're heated really high, so there's nothing else in there after it's done, or the way it's processed, it kills basically the chemical composition of what was in there.
So it might have been in there to begin with, but after they process it, it's not there anymore.
So there's another thing that you look at. So, is it even in there? So the first thing we said, can it be broken down? Second, can it be absorbed? But the third one is, are you really taking what's on the label?
So I have an interesting question for you. We've had other people on our show speak about nutrition, and most of the people we speak to tout pharmaceutical grade vitamins, which according to them means what's in there has to be in there because of the testing they do. Does that mean it has to be in there before they make it or after they make it and burn off the...
Before.
So in other words, if something is considered pharmaceutical grade, it's not the final vitamin that's considered final pharmaceutical grade, it's the things they put in before they actually put it together?
Usually the analysis is done before. The better companies do it after.
Okay.
So I think that's individual to the company.
But that pharmaceutical grade, you would agree, is better than just a vitamin that's not, right?
Yes, in general.
Right.
But again, that doesn't mean that they've done the analysis before. I mean, GNC sells a lot of pharmaceutical type of things, and so do a lot of the other companies. And I'm not saying everything that GNC or these other companies sell is not good, but there's certain lines that are in these stores that because of the way they're processed, the way they're made, the way they're heated, they're not what is on the label.
Gotcha. I've had many patients come in to me. I want to see how you feel about this. I already know, but I want the audience to see how you feel about this. That they go to their regular doctors, and their regular doctors do routine blood works on them. Everything comes back fine, or they may even have some abnormalities. They may be a little anemic, pre-diabetic, whatever. And the patients ask their regular doctors, do you think I should take vitamins? And many, many times, not all the time, but many times the regular doctors will come back to them and say, you don't need vitamins. All you need to do is just eat well. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, years ago we probably didn't need vitamins because food wasn't so processed and everything was fresher than it is today. But today, almost nothing that you eat is, first of all, grown in this country. I mean, you look at where it's from. It's from New Mexico. It's from Peru. So by the time it's picked off the tree, put into a truck or maybe even shipped over here via a boat, then it gets into another truck and gets to the grocery store, then it sits in the grocery store. Very little of those vitamins are even in that anymore.
Because the soils are depleted and they use chemicals and things.
Well, even if the soil wasn't depleted, but it is, by the time it's picked off, it's meant to be eaten immediately because that's the most potency of the fruit or the vegetable or the nut or the seed or whatever you're eating. So when you've put, from the time you picked it, 2 weeks later, by the time you've eaten it or brought it home, it's lost a lot of its nutrition. Then we get to the soil. So in the first place, how much did it really have? Right. The soil is devoid of a lot of the minerals and vitamins that are supposed to be absorbed through its root system. Right. So basically, you're eating something that may be a portion of the amount of vitamins that used to be in the same fruit or vegetable or nut seed years and years ago.
Right.
So yes, there's no way you can eat, no matter how healthy you eat, and get everything you need today. It's near impossible.
Somebody told me that the way to get the equivalent of, let's say, 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C would be to eat like 100 oranges or something like that.
I know that it's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number, but it may be close to that for sure. It's very difficult to get any of the amounts, but at the same time, a lot of your vitamins are selling you on, well, it's got 500 milligrams of something when you can only absorb 10 a day or 20. I mean, protein's a perfect example.
Right.
they put in these protein shakes, all this protein, but really you can only absorb between 25 and 27 grams.
Plus, if you eat more than that, it could be dangerous for your kidneys.
It can be dangerous. So, here you are, with this protein shake that says, 35 grams of protein, and you're like, oh, that's better than this one at 25, when you can't use it, and it can be hazardous to your kidney.
Well, that's because we've all been fooled with the myth, which is America, more and bigger is better.
Yep.
And people think that if they eat more protein, they're going to get bigger.
Yep.
When in essence they can only absorb so much, and the rest is going to go into the septic system.
Yep.
Right?
There's no question. And in fact, protein is one of the worst myths of all of them because, when you look in nature, you look at a cow or a horse, they eat grass all day. They don't eat like animals. They don't eat whatever other protein sources there are, fish or chicken.
Right.
But their bodies are big and strong. So how did this horse get big and strong from eating grass and hay all day?
Are you a vegetarian?
I was for years and years. I eat a little bit of fish occasionally, but for the most part, I'm vegan at this point.
Gotcha. And a lot of times patients will come in and they'll have a big multivitamin like that big, and like you said, it has 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C. It has all kinds of minerals, and I say to them, you're better off having this vitamin and taking it 4 times a day than just taking it on one shot and your body only absorbing a little, and they're like, oh my God, how am I going to remember to take 4 or 5 vitamins a day all throughout the day? What I say to them is, you don't have to remember. If you don't want to do it, then you won't get the absorption that you need, and you're not going to get it from taking that big one once a day. And that's what I think people don't understand, is they've got to give their bodies time to absorb what they've taken, and then once it's been absorbed, take a little bit more. And take a little bit more.
Well, it's the same with eating. If you look at why America is so overweight, it's because we eat 3 huge meals a day, and then we usually snack in between. But if you look in nature and you look at all the animals that eat, they kind of eat a little bit here, a little bit. They graze all day. They don't eat this huge meal and stop. Most of your cows, your horses, and your, most of the vegetarian animals especially, they just kind of graze all day long. That's really the healthiest way. And if you look at who lives the longest, the vegetarian animals that eat that way, whereas your meat eaters, like your lions, tigers, and bears, they don't live as long because they eat this huge amount and then they go sleep for a while.
Right.
And then they do the next kill and they eat this huge amount. So when you look at nature, you can learn a lot from it.
On the next show, we're going to talk about your sports nutrition and the book that you came out with, which is excellent. We're going to talk about dieting and things like that. And one day I'm going to write a book. You know what it's going to be called?
What's it going to be called?
Only Eat when you're hungry.
Oh, I like that.
Because so many people, they eat because it's morning, it's time to eat.
Right.
It's afternoon, it's lunchtime, it's time to eat. Everybody else in the office is eating, it's time to eat. Right. It's dinner time, it's time to eat. It's time to go to bed, that's when most people have dessert. Yep. Instead of, like every other species does, they eat when they're hungry.
Yep. So true.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, I guarantee if you were to ask 100 people, as they were about to eat something, if they were hungry, I bet half of them would say no, but it's time to eat.
Yep.
Do you agree that we should eat when we're hungry?
You eat when you're hungry, and you eat slow so that you fill up. People eat so fast that they overeat. So the trick is to chew well and eat slow.
And what's interesting is that I explain to my patients is when you overeat, your stomach gets stretched out. It now becomes a bigger container.
Yep.
And those stretch receptors now become more active to fire. So now after the food leaves the stomach and the stomach starts to shrink down, they start to feel hungry again because their stomachs are so big and they used to bloating themselves so much.
It's very true.
And that's proven by, you do studies of people like who have been stranded on rafts or people who have been stranded on desert islands who haven't eaten for many, many, many days. Those people, they start to eat, they have 1 or 2 bites, they're full because their stomachs are about that big and they haven't been bloating themselves. And if they eat too much, they'll get sick and they'll actually regurgitate it. Yep. Tell us a little more about therapeutic vitamins, like using vitamins for different conditions, like let's say osteoporosis. What would you recommend for a patient with osteoporosis? What types of vitamins? And what forms of calcium or vitamins do you think are?
The first thing about osteoporosis is that, when we look at it and you look in the history of who gets it, all right, it's almost all the people who have very acidic diets. right? And the acid diets are people that drink a lot, who eat a lot of soda, who eat a lot of meat. Those are the people that actually wind up getting it a lot more, because when your system's acidic, the body has to take calcium phosphate that's in the bone out of the bone to put it in the blood to neutralize. So the first thing you have to do when somebody has osteoporosis is you got to change their diet.
Gotcha.
Now that you know that their body is devoid of a lot of calcium and phosphate in the bone, now we have to give that back to them. Now, some of the best sources are a lot of your fruits and vegetables, your nuts and your seeds have a lot of calcium and have a lot of phosphorus in it.
Right.
Those are the things that you want to put it back in, or to get a good supplement that's got, you know, calcium phosphate in it.
Right. So
and minerals. And actually, that's probably another thing. When you are very acidic, you leach the minerals out of the bone, which again makes why it's so brittle, because the mineral makes it strong and makes it more pliable. So, you know, again, when the acid diet occurs, you know, the calcium phosphate minerals come out, we got to stop the cause, which is the diet, and then put it back in.
So somebody who's osteoporotic, you want to make sure they're not eating a lot of meat, you want to make sure they're not drinking a lot of alcohol, you want to make sure they're not having a lot of sugary type sodas, things like anything else?
Sugar is a big acid food. Your processed foods are very acid. So, you know, people don't really realize, but when you process a food, I mean, let's just take spinach. It's a base food, but now process it into spinach pasta, it now turns into an acid food. So as soon as you process what's in nature, you will turn it into an acid food. But your fruits, your vegetables, your nuts, seeds, grains, for the most part, are your base foods. Those are the foods that should be 70–80% of our diet, when really, in America especially, those are probably more like 20 to 30% of our diet.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is, let's say you have a 70-year-old osteoporotic woman who is now taking calcium supplements. She might be on Fosamax, she might be on other types of bone-sparing drugs and calcium rebuilding type drugs. That if that woman does not change her diet and she's on an acidic diet, she's not getting the maximal benefit out of those other treatments.
No, she's not. And as a matter of fact, it's proven a lot of times when they go for these bone scans, they'll be on these medicines or they'll be on vitamins to try to help, and the end result is it's minimal at best. It's not, you know, after 6 months or a year, you'd expect some bone back in there, and you don't really see it, you know, until that diet's changed.
Do you think, in your opinion, that if somebody totally changes their diet like that and they revert it to an alkaline diet, that there still might be need for those drugs at times?
I don't, because at that point now, let's give the vitamins back so the body reabsorbs. So we don't need the drug anymore because the body can do it itself. I mean, the body doesn't want to pull the calcium and phosphorus and minerals out of the bone. It doesn't really want to, but your bloodstream has to stay basic, 7.2 to 7.4. That's the normal pH of your bloodstream. And it'll do anything, because if you get your bloodstream gets acid, you're going to die. Right. That's why when people drink too much alcohol, you know, and all of a sudden they die, it's because they got so acidic that their system couldn't get alkalized anymore, and that was it, done. Their breathing shuts down, and they leave us.
And how important is exercise for these osteoporotic patients?
Oh, it's also important because, again, when you exercise, you increase blood flow, and blood flow helps to get the nutrients back into the bone.
Right. And weight bearing against the long bones, that causes more calcium deposition, right?
Weight bearing absolutely does.
Right.
But again, if you're constantly pulling it out with your diet, but you're still exercising, it's a futile attempt to try to fix the problem. It's like having a nail in the tire, and you keep putting air in it. You know, it works for a while, but until you pull that nail out and fix the hole, it's not really going to give you the end result that the client is looking for.
Right. Well, I'm going to be a little facetious now with this next question. But isn't the meat that we eat in this country like totally safe and pass all the inspections and everything? And you know, I'm sure there's stringent inspection requirements, and that meat is totally safe that you get in the stores. Is that true?
Well, let's just put it this way. If it even were, which I don't agree that it is, we're not really, our bodies aren't made to really eat meat except for survival. I mean, really, when you go back and you think about it, if I threw you on an island, would you go be trying to kill animals, or would you be eating the fruits and vegetables? I mean, your nature is to go get the fruits and vegetables, things you can pick. When you look at our bodies, we don't have uric acidase, the enzyme to break down uric acid that's in meat. We don't have it, but meat eaters do. Lions, tigers, and bears have that enzyme. Mm-hmm. when you look about our teeth, we don't have the big canines.
Mm-hmm.
We have very long intestinal systems, whereas your meat eaters have very small, short. And here's my favorite one. Meat eaters actually breathe and sweat, I should say sweat, from their mouth, not their pores. So if you look at all your meat eaters, they actually sweat from the mouth.
What do you mean, inside the mouth or outside
they
the
sweat.
mouth?
That's why they pant.
Oh, okay.
They actually sweat as they.
You mean like lions and things?
Yes.
About. Okay.
If you look at when they run or do anything, the way they sweat is, or your dog,
Right.
okay, the tongue comes out and they start to pant because their pores for sweating are in their mouth. That's how they get rid of heat.
That's how they get rid of the heat, is by panting and trying to
Get rid of it. Whereas we get rid of it through our pores. Okay. So when you look at the difference between a meat eater and a non-meat eater, if you have pores, you're supposed to be a non-meat eater. If you don't have pores and you pant to get rid of the heat, then you're a meat eater. So there are so many different ways that you can see that we're just not geared to be meat eaters. But now, if you do eat it, 4 ounces of meat turns into 16 grams of uric acid. You can only get rid of 8 a day.
What happens to the rest?
It builds up in your body.
And then what happens?
Gout and other diseases. They've linked it to different cancers, different arthritises. So you want, if you do eat meat, every other day. So at least your body has enough time to get rid of it.
To get rid of that extra uric acid.
Exactly. So there's, again, there's right ways to eat it and there's wrong ways. Now, let's get to the meat. You asked me that question. Do you think it's safe?
Right.
Well, I mean, most of your meat has got tons of hormones in it. It's injected into it to make it bigger and fatter so they can sell for more. But besides that, it's got the hormones from that animal in it. So when you look at cows, for instance, and you eat their meat or their milk, or whatever it is you eat from a cow, why do we have this thing called derriere? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big butt, right?
Right.
Your big derriere?
Yep.
Well, where did that come from?
I don't have one, but that's right.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead.
So where did it come from is from eating a lot of dairy, because you're eating the hormones in that animal. See, a cow has a big butt and it has a lot of fat, but we're not supposed to have that. So when you eat their hormone, it's tricking our body into thinking we need fat. And that's why in America, when you look at all the, listen, there's a reason that we're the 33rd healthiest country in the world, if you want to, depending on how you look at it. Okay, there's 32 countries ahead of us in healthcare, but we're one of the richest countries in the world. And why? Is because because we're so rich, we can afford these things like steaks and dairy products. Where you go to the poorer countries, they don't eat their animals because they need their animals for some sort of function. Okay.
Right.
And they can't afford to do the things that you have to do with these animals to eat them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're sacred, so they don't.
Right.
So they're eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, and they're thin people. You look at the Hunzas in Pakistan or wherever culture you study that live to like 100 years old, and you look at what they eat, it's fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains. Right. You look at America, if we live to 100 here, you're like a freak of nature.
Right.
Whereas their average age is close to 100 years old.
Right.
So as far as meat goes, it's got so much garbage in it just that's injected, let alone the natural stuff that's already in it, that I would just say to people, if you're going to eat it, get it with no antibiotics, get it with that's been grass-fed, and get it so that you know that it's the purest and freshest beef or meat you can get.
And why do you think that in the media over the last, 4, 5, 6 years, there's so many instances of like salmonella outbreaks, and in the meats that the chicken, beef, constantly we're seeing
it's
salmonella.
so hard to keep this stuff frozen.
Aureus,
the slaughtering itself is a dirty business. Listen, it's tough to be germ-free when you slaughter an animal.
Right.
But now, the animal has bacteria in it that can get back into itself in the slaughtering process.
Right.
But besides that, just for the meat being laying around, if it's laying around too long before they package it and freeze it or refrigerate it, it can already start to build the bacteria.
Right. I read an interesting article, research article, which kind of said that years and years ago, cows were fed grass. That's what they ate. Today, they're primarily feeding them corn-based products. We're growing corn like crazy just to feed the animals, and that historically and genetically, cows really aren't used to digesting corn, which is another reason for the outbreak of these bacteria, which normally wouldn't be present if they were eating grass. So once we break the normal cycle of things, all kinds of things happen.
Right. Listen, animals are meant to eat a certain way to keep them healthy. That's why when you take dogs in nature, they live longer and healthier than when you put them in captivity, because in captivity, we're feeding them dog food. In nature, they actually eat what's around them.
Right. Actually, I'm going to save this question for our next show because it has to do with chemotherapy and cancer, which we're going to touch on nutrition-wise in our next show. But Dr. Kleinwax, my good friend Rob, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
And on our next show, we'll have a little more fun.
Great.
For those of you in the audience that are watching us on Madhouse TV, stay tuned. We'll be right back. For those of you watching us on Cablevision, hope to see you next time. And remember one thing, if you want real wealth, join us next time on The Bridge to Health.
Finally, the time has come. You no longer have to choose between conventional medicine and alternative medicine. Today, unlike years past, your team of doctors from all disciplines are working together side by side for the benefit of you, the patient, to help you regain your health and cross the bridge.
Hi again. Welcome back to the Bridge to Health. My name is Dr. Tom Dow. And for this show, we have a return guest, Dr. Robert Kleinwax. Hi, Doc.
Hey, what's happening?
How you doing? Good to see you again. So on our last show, we spoke a lot about nutrition, a lot about vitamins. what vitamins are good, what vitamins are bad, how you should take them. Today, we're going to speak on two topics. And the first one is I'd like to talk about cancer. And
one of my favorites.
And whether people who have cancer should be taking vitamins, shouldn't be taking vitamins. They're on chemotherapy. I mean, I've been told by a lot of my patients who are on chemotherapy, their doctors tell them, don't take anything. We don't want to do anything that'll mess up your treatment. What are your feelings about cancer and nutrition?
Well, I mean, that's like a 5-hour topic, but to melt it down into one little kind of segment,
we have 5 hours. That's all right.
All right, so we'll start now. There's no question that your body makes cancer cells all day. Yours is making them right now. Mine's making it. Everybody that's walking around on planet Earth is making them. The question is why all of a sudden does your immune system stop killing them? Why does the immune system get weaker? And when you look at the denominators that are in there, it's either from the only things that weaken immune systems are stress, nutrition, or something physical. And there's a lot of physical things. I mean,
I can think of one more.
Well, let me give me the fourth.
Drugs.
Well, the physical thing can be a drug, can be chemical.
Right.
But
certain drugs such as the biologics. I mean, people like Humira and
anything that
Enbrel
weakens,
and things like that.
Anything that weakens the immune system can give you cancer.
Well, they actually shut down TNF, which is tumor necrosis factor, which is what you were just talking about, something we produce all day long to kill tumor cells. It shuts that down.
Right.
So one of the side effects of these biologics is the possibility of developing cancers.
Yep.
So I think what you're saying is absolutely true, that it's our immune systems which aren't fighting it anymore. Is that what you're saying?
Your immune system's getting tired because it's fighting something, okay? And it's fighting it too much. Or it's tired because it's been fighting so much. So if you have a poor diet all the time and your body's constantly fighting to get rid of these poisons you're putting in there, and I don't care if these poisons are alcohol, they're cigarette smoke, whatever these poisons are you're putting in, eventually it catches up. And it doesn't catch up on everybody because there's nothing on everybody, but we know that smoking leads to cancer. We know certain drugs now lead to cancer. Certain diets, you can see around the world, there's certain parts of the world, they don't get cancer until they come to our country.
Right.
And all of a sudden they start to eat American diet. Boom,
Right.
Cancer.
Right.
But one of the ones that probably slips through the cracks is your mouth. Like what goes on in your mouth. And, I have a personal story about it, so I kind of have a very close opinion about this. But
okay, before we start on that, I just want to give the audience a little background about us.
okay.
Okay. So Dr. Kleinwax was a fellow classmate of mine. We graduated in December 1983, and we graduated chiropractic school. We spent a lot of time together. We were roommates together for a while. And Dr. Kleinwax, out of all the students in my class, he was the cleanest nutrition guy. He was a professional tennis player,
Well,
right?
I played.
Semi-pro, tremendous athlete. Even though I beat him in racquetball a lot, not. But tremendous physical shape. He still is, and ate to the perfection. I mean, nuts, grains. I mean, fresh vegetables, not cooked vegetables. And we always used to fool around when I would have a burger or something. He'd be like, "Why are you eating that?" That kind of thing. So he was a perfect example of how you should eat. But yet he still became very, very ill. And now I'd like you to tell the audience what exactly happened to you, Dr. Klein.
So, that's all true. I was very anal about eating correctly. I exercised 3-4 days a week. I played tennis regularly. I did all the things that you think would be the things that would prevent you from getting cancer. I was a positive thinker. I read all the books,
Right.
about positive thinking, and I set goals. I did all this stuff. But, one day while I was playing tennis, I noticed my left leg was swollen. Didn't know why. I went to the doctor. He told me I had a virus. Long story short, months later, I found out I had a tumor the size of a small football in my lower abdomen that was shutting off the blood supply down my left leg.
Wow.
After the diagnosis, they told me that I had large cell follicular non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And basically they said, we think we can put it in remission. We're not sure. It's one of the, quote, better ones to get, which I don't know why, I'm happy I guess I got a better one if I could get one. But after trying every alternative that was out there, fasting,
such as
I fasted, I went to a healer, I was doing, all the traditional, or non-traditional, I should say, care that was out there. I was flying around the country with different vitamins.
Around the world.
I traveled around the entire country for months.
For alternative treatments.
For alternative treatments, and I tried some crazy stuff that I won't even talk about here, because you'll probably go, what? Why would you do that? But I didn't want to do chemo because my belief about chemo is that if you can give chemo to a healthy person, it can make them sick. How then can you give it to a sick person and make them healthy? It just didn't make sense to me. But after trying everything alternatively, and the whole time that I was trying all this stuff, my gut was that it was in my mouth. And I did try going to a dentist who put me on a detox, and basically said, I can't remove anything from your mouth. I can't even do anything until we clean you out. In that process,
a detox diet?
Detox diet. In that process, the tumor got bigger and shut down my kidney. I had to put a stent in, and then I was faced with, well, what do I do? So I tried chemo. I did 3 treatments. And
3 treatments or rounds?
3 rounds. Right. And after the 3rd round, the tumor didn't shrink enough for them to think that they should go on. And
so they basically threw their hands up and said, the chemo's not, you don't need any more chemo, it's not going to make any difference.
We're going to have to try something else. And I knew right then I wasn't trying something else, that they had, because I felt so terrible being on the chemo.
Were you pretty sick with that?
I was so sick from it.
Were you taking any vitamins while you were going through that?
I was taking some vitamins against their will, and I was still eating really, really healthy against what they thought would be true.
Right.
My dental friend of mine said to me, this good name, good dentist, Jay Dorick, told me, he says, I want you to go see this person that's in Pennsylvania, Dr. Blanche Gruby, who I did see. And long story short, pulled out my root canals that were in my mouth, pulled out all the metal that was in my fillings, and she did a blood test to find out what I'm compatible for. And this is the first thing that really made sense to me. She said, would you take someone else's skin and put it on your body without knowing if you're compatible? Would you take somebody else's organ or blood without knowing if you're compatible to it? And of course I said, no, I wouldn't. So then why would you just put anything in your mouth? It's stuck in your teeth. You can't get rid of it. If you're not compatible with it, your immune system is working all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to get rid of it. You're tiring your immune system out. I said, well, what about the root canals? And she said, well, a root canal is a dead tooth. So if you know anything about dead things in your body, dead red blood cells, dead white blood cells, your body's immune system goes up and cleans it up and gets rid of it. But now you have a dead tooth, it can't get rid of it. So the immune system is trying to get rid of this thing, but can't. So between your root canal and your metal in your mouth, your body's working so hard. And then the third factor is the mercury. A lot of the fillings, because they were metal, had mercury in them, which is poisonous, which gets in your system, which basically can help shut down the immune system. So I didn't really think it was going to work, to be honest with you, but I did it. And about 4 to 5 weeks later, I started getting a lot of back pain, and I started getting thigh pain, all the pain that I got 7 years previous but didn't know I had cancer. But again, I just figured that this tumor was growing more. I went out, had an MRI about 7 weeks after I had all this procedure done in my mouth. And that night I got the phone call that scared the living out of me. The doctor said, what did you do? And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, how bad is this tumor? And I said, why, doc? And he said, because I can't find the tumor.
Wow.
So I said to him, well, do you have my MRI? Because I didn't believe it. Because I said, I've been getting leg pain and back pain and stuff, which is almost gone now, but I was getting it. And he says, well, he goes, no. He goes, I made sure it was your MRI. It's definitely your MRI. I said, well, what is the back pain and stuff from? He goes, well, a lot of times when a tumor grows and it hits it, when it comes back off, it pulls on the same things that it hit on the way in. Now, we, in our profession, call it retracing.
Right, yep.
Okay, but it made total sense.
So that tumor, as it shrunk, was pulling on some neurological elements as it was shrinking, and that's why you were feeling
giving me the
pain
same
again.
symptoms as when it was expanded.
Wow, good symptoms.
Yeah, that's why sometimes you have to look at symptoms as a blessing.
Right.
It's your body telling you that things are either going well or not going well.
Right.
But it's sometimes the best blessing in the world. But 5 years later now it's been, and all the tests are normal. Everything's negative. Knock on a lot of stuff.
Thank God.
And now I talk about it all the time. And now I talk about cleaning the blood, getting rid of all of it. So I started a product line that, while I was sick, one of the problems I had is a lot of the products that I was buying, vitamins and other detox products, I didn't feel like were pure. I felt like they were really made like garbage, if you want to say it. And I went out and tried to find stuff that was really good, and I found a laboratory that made really good stuff, and I started making these vitamins and selling them because I really believed that in order to get well, you have to have the right things to get well. And even though you're taking a vitamin or some sort of greens product, which I have a great greens product, which I started taking immediately to help clean out my system from all this stuff that was being released from the root canals and the metal and everything. It was amazing how fast I got well. I mean, within 7 weeks from the time that the mouth was cleaned out, boom. I mean, tumor the size of a small football was gone.
That's very, very interesting because I read an article, a research article, where they actually took laboratory mice, and the theory behind the article was that mercury toxicity, affecting brain function might be causing some of the Alzheimer's we're seeing today.
Yeah.
And what they actually did was they took these mice and they gave them mercury but linked to a radioactive isotope combined. And what they did was they did MRIs of these brains of these mice, like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 weeks later, and they found that mercury, which they put in their teeth, I believe, I'm pretty sure, had been absorbed from the teeth and was found in the brain at the different sites where people get Alzheimer's. So I wonder how many people are out there with mercury fillings that are absorbing mercury little by little by little by little by little every day, and maybe that's a possible cause of why their neurological function isn't what it should be.
Well, if you look up mercury poisoning, you'll find things like dizziness and tiredness and memory or the way that your brain reacts to things changes. I mean, you'll find a whole array of symptoms from mercury poisoning. And mercury is not just in your mouth. Obviously, it's in fish, a lot of the larger fish especially. It's in a lot of your vaccines,
right,
which is why now a lot of these vaccines have been taken off the market because they're linked to other diseases. There's a whole study now where they're thinking a lot of these vaccines are causing autism and other brain injured children. Mm-hmm. More and more, I think science is starting to show that things that aren't naturally supposed to be in our body don't belong in our body.
So mercury is a heavy metal, correct?
It's a heavy metal.
What other heavy metals are there that could be toxic to a human?
Gosh, there's so many. I mean,
such as?
Well, silver and gold. And I mean, when you really look at all the different metals that are out there that we use or have used in dentistry at some point,
right,
I mean, there's a lot of different metals. It's not just one. And what's interesting is when I have my
aluminum.
Aluminum is, crazy. I mean,
right,
that's in a lot of your deodorants.
It's also in a lot of pots.
It's in a lot of pots when you're cooking.
Food, right?
Yeah, I mean, aluminum is another heavy metal that's been slowly linked to a lot of other diseases. I mean, the truth is that we've gotten so far away from a natural lifestyle,
right,
that, when you look at America and you look at the fact that we're the 33rd healthiest country in the world with all the money we have, it's because we have all this money to buy all this stuff and to eat, if you want to call it extravagant, in these beautiful restaurants that make foods that have everything in the world in them that probably don't belong in us, with alcohol.
Where the best meal is the biggest one.
The best meal is the biggest one,
how many
and the most
patients
expensive
have you
one.
had come in and say, "Oh, you got to go to this restaurant"? You just see the size serving they give you,
yeah,
right?
Yep, that's true.
Is there any way for a person who thinks that they may have heavy metal poisoning to be tested?
There is tests to actually do it. They're urine tests that they actually give you a chelating factor, and then they have you urine over a 24-hour, 48-hour period, and they can test to see what comes out. Right. It's not 100% accurate because a lot of the heavy metals are stored deep in the fat cell and they don't come out right away, which is why I'm very big into greens products and eating a lot of greens.
Will that get the heavy metals out of the person's body if they eat a lot of greens?
Greens help, but again, it has to be over a very long period of time.
What else can get the metals out of the body?
Chelation.
And explain to the audience what chelation is.
Chelation is basically putting these, it's being hooked up to an IV that has chelates in it that actually grab the different heavy metals,
chemicals that
that
attach
actually
to the heavy metals,
and then you
they
urinate
kick
it
them out
out.
of the body. Does the medical profession, the general medical profession in general, believe that that treatment is effective and works?
You know, it depends. I mean, who I went to when I was doing it was a medical doctor.
Right.
You know, who I had vitamin C drips and actually I had started a chelation and I wound up stopping because I did the greens instead. But you know, more and more I think you'll see that medicine is starting to embrace a lot of these alternatives because they make sense. You know, it's not, you know, I think common sense is your biggest, you know, common denominator in deciding on what to do. And almost all your natural things make so much sense when you really just look at it. Whereas a lot of the medical procedures that are done, you scratch your head and like, well, chemo causes cancer and causes people that are healthy to be sick, but I'm sick, you're going to give me chemo.
Right. And I'm sure if we have an oncologist on here who does chemotherapy every day as a guest one day, he'll be saying just the opposite. So it's what really has to happen is the public has to do their due diligence and they have to do their research. They have to read the book that you wrote, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and take all the information that they possibly can and then make the best decisions for themselves.
Absolutely.
This is why in all of our office locations, our office in Melville, Medford, Hicksville, and Ronkonkoma, they're multidiscipline offices. We have professionals in both conventional medicine as well as alternative medicine such as Dr. Kleinwax, where instead of one person having one opinion, another person having another opinion, we constantly have a dialogue between our practitioners. And we'll talk about chelation to one of our medical professionals. We'll talk about greens. And believe it or not, the interest that our professionals have is amazing. They just want to learn more and more and more and more. And it's an awesome, awesome balance and a great, almost university learning environment that we have in our centers where we're constantly learning from each other and trying to give the patient the best they possibly can. Why don't you, I know your book is a fantastic book. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you wrote that book and what the focus of that book is? And can you hold it up, please, and just show the audience?
So, you know, the name of the book is called The Sports Triad. And I wrote the book for several different reasons. I wrote it because after I got well, I always said I was going to write a book. And I hadn't written one yet. And I was like, okay, it's time. I have to write a book now. But I wanted to write a book about something that really was meaningful. And to me, there's only a few reasons why people aren't healthy. It's either they don't eat right, they don't think right, or something physically is wrong, whether they have a subluxation in their neck or back, or there's a problem where they've been in a car accident. But basically, there's only a certain amount of things. It's kind of finite. But at the same time that it's finite, you know, the sports triad is this triangle between the physical, what physical things are wrong, the mental, and again, the nutritional. And I work a lot with athletes to try to maximize performance, and I do it with non-athletes also, but the athletes are where you see the biggest difference. Because you can take somebody that's, you know, someone like us, and ask them, well, how much better did you feel? Oh, I felt okay. But now you do it for an athlete, and they say, wow, you know, I just ran a 60, the best 60 I ever ran. Or, you know, I work with MMA fighters, and the MMA fighters say, I mean, I didn't get tired. I mean, I fought all 3 rounds full out, and I did not get tired. Again, you go with the baseball players, it's like, you know, my fastest I ever pitched in my life was 89. I hit 92. Because by maximizing your health, by getting your body to work at 100%, and by increasing your natural performance, and again, that's our thing, increasing performance naturally. And performance, we talk about a lot of times in sports, but to me, it's not just about sports. Performance in your job, performance at school. I love working with students that are student athletes, because as soon as we start working with them, I have a couple wrestlers who are you know, are basically all Americans, and you know, the feedback is, well, not only am I wrestling the best I've ever wrestled, but schoolwork seems so much easier. You know, it seems like they're clearer thinking because they're eating clearer, they're eating better, they're taking a lot of the nutrients and vitamins that I recommend, that I actually carry, and I've created because I believe in them, because not only are they're 100% whole, but there's no preservatives, no additives, they're wheat-free, gluten-free, They're really made dairy-free. They're made the way vitamins should be made if you're going to supplement. You know.
So let me ask you a question. Besides your nutrient line, is there any? Do you do work with athletes one-on-one if people want
We
that?
do a ton of work on the phone. I mean, most of my work is on the phone. I have some athletes come because I need to check certain things about them that just don't make sense. But for the most part, almost everything's on the phone or we Skype because a lot of things I'm going to have them change the way they think. You know, we do a lot of things the way they think.
You act as a consultant for these.
We work with them regularly to change, and I have to. You know, in the questionnaire, we try to figure out what's their major. Mm-hmm. Is it the way they think? Are they really negative? Do they think they can't do whatever they're trying to do? Mm-hmm. You know, back down deep.
Right.
Do we need to work with affirmations, or do we need to set some different kind of goals, or do we need to do something with them to change the way they believe about what they're doing? Or do we have to change some of their nutrition, the way they eat, supplements they take? Or do we have to do both? Or do I need to recommend to a chiropractor to get some ART or to get spinal adjustments or an acupuncturist or whoever else it is that I think will help maximize their health and their performance, which is why, you know, your centers are so great because you do all that stuff.
I have a question. I have a 10-year-old that I want to know if you could help him. His problem is he thinks he doesn't need any help. And he's a baseball player, and he's the best.
I got
hitter,
a few of them too.
And he's the best hitter ever, and he doesn't need to change his swing, and he doesn't need to change his attitude. Can you help him? No, I'm only kidding. I'd like you to just tell the audience if they want to contact you, how they can contact you, if you have a website, if you have a phone number.
Yep.
Can you let them know?
It's very simple. I mean, my website where I carry all my vitamins, the books, where you can just go on there and just learn a little bit about the company. It's called Eat and Think, the number 2win.com. So it's Eat and Think 2win.com, or my phone number is 516-200-5400. Again, it's 516-200-5400. And I'm more than glad if you want to email me. Actually, my email is drrobert@eatandthinktowin.com, but that's also on the website. So again, it's drrobert@eatandthinktowin.com. I'd be more than glad if you want to email me any of your questions to answer them or call me, and we'll see if we can help you.
Excellent, excellent. One last question. Tell us a little bit about your boy who plays baseball. Does he follow your advice, or is he?
Well, it's funny that you said that because, you know, he's been to a million of my lectures. I lecture across the country, and I've lectured so many times at his school because I want the whole program there to do well. And up to the time he was probably about 13 or 14 years old, I think he kind of poo-pooed most of this stuff. Didn't really, you know, it's my dad telling me this stuff. Right. But what happened was, everything changed one day. We were in Florida, and he works out at the old Bucky Dent Baseball School with one of the pros down there. And he was with a good buddy of his, and they stayed for the week. And every day we went to the field, and the first thing they want to do is they want to hit home runs. So it's like, can you pitch to me? I want to see if I can hit it over the fence. You know, and of course, you know, like every boy's dream, they want to hit a lot of them over. Well, every day they both tried, and no one hit it over. They were coming close, but they weren't hitting it over. The last day I brought his friend home. I went to the airport, and I came back. And the facility is about 10 minutes away, and it was 10 to 10. So in
the morning or night?
In the morning. And I said to him, Zach, you're not even dressed. Come on, we got to go. So he got dressed real quick, and he goes, I don't have time to eat. I go, that's fine. Have some bananas. And this is what I always say, is don't eat before a big event, because then all your blood's in your stomach. If it's in your stomach, then it's not in your extremities and your brain.
Right.
That's why kids fall asleep after big meals, because all the blood is in the wrong place. So basically, he had 2 bananas on the way there. So now all the blood's in his muscles, and bananas have potassium, which is a natural steroid in it, by the way, which is why the joke is monkeys are so strong. Well, there's a reason. He went to the park, and that day he had 6 out.
Wow.
Now, that is the day that he started to listen. And started to follow. He now takes all his vitamins.
Maybe
takes
Dad knows
everything.
what he's talking about, huh?
And now it's religious. That's what he does.
Well, I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm on the way home. I'm going to pick up a whole bunch of bananas and give them to my son, and then maybe he'll start to listen too. Dr. Kleinwax, I want to thank you very much
Thank
again
you for having
joining me and being my friend for many years.
Thank
I
you.
hope to have you back again soon.
Love to.
For those of you in the audience, thank you for being with us today. And if you want real wealth, Make sure you join us next time on The Bridge to Health.